When Alex called to tell me that I was this year's inductee into the Animal Rights Hall of Fame, I was frankly shocked. You heard the list of people who've been inducted, and many of them are my heroes. And I couldn't quite believe that I was going to be joining this incredibly illustrious and amazing group of activists. But then I started to think that this was something else entirely, that even though I was being given this honor, this was really an honor for the field that I've been working in all these years, humane education. I've been a humane educator for 25 years, and I've been trying to convince my colleagues in the animal rights movement of how incredibly important and effective humane education is in order to create change. So it's very moving now to feel that this field itself is being so validated, and not only humane education in general, but comprehensive humane education, because I've spent my life drawing the connections between animal rights and human rights and environmental preservation, and to have that validated as well is really incredible, and I'm incredibly grateful. I want to tell you how I came to believe in humane education as such an effective strategy for change. And it started back in 1987 when I was looking for a summer job in the Philadelphia area. And I heard about this program at the University of Pennsylvania that offered week-long classes to secondary school students, mostly 12 and 13-year-olds. And I called the director and I offered to teach a whole bunch of courses. So I offered to teach one on creative writing, and one on critical television watching, and one on world religions, and one on environmental issues, and one on animal issues. I was kind of a dilettante, so I had a lot of different interests that I could talk about. Well, she said yes to all of the courses, which apparently she was saying to just about everybody. So there were 60 courses offered that summer, and there weren't nearly enough students to fill them all up. So 2 of mine got canceled, like including critical television watching. I don't know why 12-year-olds didn't want to watch TV critically. However, the animal issues course was the second most popular of the 60 offered that summer. Now, usually people wonder what the most popular one was, so I'll tell you, it was robotics, even back in 1987. But look, if that's all we're competing against, we're golden. So I taught this course, and it was a week long. We met from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And the students came in on Monday, and they were different when they left on Friday. They'd changed their diets, they'd changed their habits, they'd changed what they cared about, and they had become activists in the course of a week. One boy actually became an activist overnight. On Wednesday, I talked about product testing on animals, and he came back Thursday morning and he said, "Zoe, look what I made last night at home." He'd made homemade leaflets. And he said, "Can I hand them out at lunch?" And I said, "Sure." So while the rest of us were having lunch, he was on a Philadelphia street corner handing out his leaflets. There were 2 other students in that class who I stayed in touch with. One of them was a youth award winner here, David Berman. Well, David's mother called me sometime after this course was over and left a message for me. Now, I knew David's mother was a physician and also a professor at the medical school. And those were contentious years, the 1980s in Philadelphia, because there had been a big break-in at the hospital, the University of Pennsylvania, and the footage of the baboon head bashing experiments had been stolen. So it was a contentious time, and I was a little worried. I was thinking, oh, what's she going to be calling me for? What's she going to say? So I called her back, Dr. Berman, and I said, "Hi, Dr. Berman, it's Zoe Weil." And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you called back." She said, "You changed my son's life." And I said, "Are you glad about that?" And she said, "Well, I don't agree with you, but my son wants to change the world, and he's not into drugs. Can you teach him some more?" So David and Carrie got their friends, and we started an after-school course. And at the time, they went to different schools. We taught it out of my home, and they invited their friends. And then what happened was they started a Philadelphia area-wide club called SPARE, Students Protecting Animals' Rights and the Environment, and of course went on to win awards and do incredible things. And then I no longer had to teach them out of my home because I could go into their individual schools. So I hadn't seen David in about 16 years. And this past September, I was invited to give a talk with Jane Goodall for a Roots and Shoots event in New York City. And that's where David lives now. So I invited him to come. And he came, and after it was over, I was introducing him to some friends of mine. And I said, this is David Berman. He was in the very first class that I ever taught in humane education. David's now 35 years old. And he jumped in, and he said, that course changed my life. So that's my first story. My second story is about Mike. After I started Animal Learn, I was going into schools in the greater Philadelphia area, and I was doing classroom presentations and assembly programs and after-school programs. Whatever anybody wanted, I would do it. And so I was teaching an after-school course to high school students at a very affluent suburban public high school. And there was a boy in that course who was really smart, and he always sat in the front. He never cracked a smile, and he never shed a tear, even though we watched lots of those videos that Ginny was talking about. And I wondered if I was reaching him. But he always played devil's advocate, and I love that. I love critical thinking. It's the most important thing to me when I'm teaching. In fact, I always tell students, don't believe a word I have to say, because I want them to think for themselves. And he was good at that. So I didn't know if I was reaching him, and then the course was over, and the last day of the course, I decided to do this activity with the students called a Council of All Beings. And it's a little touchy-feely. Basically what happens is I guide the students in a meditation to imagine themselves as another being, maybe another animal, or a landscape, or plant, or some part of nature. And I ask them to think about what they want to say to people as this other being. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh, what's Mike going to think of this? This is just way too woo-woo for him. Not only did I have them become another being in their imaginations, but then they had to make masks, like kindergarten, you know, making masks of yourself as this other being. And I'm thinking, you know, this kid's going off to an Ivy League college afterwards. What is he going to really participate? Well, my fears were unfounded. After he made his mask and we sat in the council in a circle on the grass, he lifted the mask in front of his face and poetry came out of his mouth. It was so moving. I was stunned. My jaw probably dropped. And after it was over and the whole course was over, this was the end of the course, and I was saying thank you to all of them and wishing them luck, he waited until the very end and he said, thank you, because when I look back on high school, this is what I'm going to remember.